Hi there, Stampers. This is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I go live every Monday and Thursday here on YouTube and Facebook, and usually with some sort of a fun fold card. But today we're doing more of a technique. Today we're going to be watercoloring on our Fluid 100 paper, and then we're going to heat emboss and then color in it using the water painters. So I can't wait to show you how it's done. Of course, as a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, everything I use is Stampin' Up! Product, or sometimes there's something that's not, and I recommend that as well. Those things are linked over on my blog. And of course, I appreciate it when you shop with me, and I thank you by sending you a PDF tutorial of 6 cards, as well as a card kit for one of the cards that we will be making the following month. Right now, Stampin' Up! Is having a sale where all of their bundles, their die bundles in the catalog, are all an extra 10% off. Normally, by ordering a bundle, which is a stamp set and a set of dies together, they're going to save 10% by buying them as a bundle. But right now, you're going to save 20%. And if you don't have a die cutting machine yet, they have you covered on that as well, in that our die machines are all 10% off this month. But that's over in 10 days. So if you're looking for a wonderful bundle of dies and stamps, we got you covered. So let me put you down onto my desk and I'll show you today's project. As I said, it's a watercoloring technique. And we're heat embossing and then coloring with the water painters. They show you that technique in the catalog on page 118 and 119, where they go into the various ways that you can watercolor. And the water painters are just one of the ways. You can also use the watercolor pencils, you can use their spritzers, and you can even use the pastels. But today, we're using the water painters. They come in a set of 3. Looks like they're $13. And then you get 3 different sizes. And so this really wide brush is great for making like a swooshed background. It's got a big wide brush. Then they've got another one that is just, a regular size bristle brush. And then they've got a small one. And then all you do is you unscrew them. If I could get a grip on something. And then you fill them with water. My shoulder's not letting me turn them. But anyway, you would unscrew the top. You would fill the base with water. As you can see, there's some water in there. And then that water is going to flow down through the bristles when you squeeze it. Come on, I'm going to gently get some out. There we go. So there's some water. And then all you have to do is pick up a little bit of ink. And there's multiple ways you can do that. You can use the stamp pad, which is what I'm going to be doing today, where I just kind of dip the ink into the corner onto the pad itself. You can add a drop of re-inker in here, or you can squeeze the pads together, and some of them, if they're flexible enough, will put a little dab of the paint on the inside, or the ink on the inside of the case. Or there's those little water color palettes. You know what I'm talking about. So the little wells in them, they're about 1 inch big. You can put watercolor in those as well, with just a little drop of re-inker and a little bit of water. But let's get started on today's card. So for today's card, I have a Misty Moonlight card base. And so that's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, just a standard base. Then I've got your 4 by 5 1/4 for the inside layer. And then the outside, what I'm going to do is be putting them on there a little bit cattywampus and giving a different effect. And so these are actually 3 3/4 by 5, because I wanted a little bit of extra cushion around the outside, so I have room to do that. And then I'm going to be wrapping a little bit of our basic beige ribbon around the top layer, and then I've embellished with a few of the basic rhinestones. Yeah, the catalog, they've actually kind of aimed at beginners this year. And it's kind of cool if you go through there because they talk about various techniques and tips and talk a lot more about the various kinds of stamps that we have and why you would want one over the other. There we go. The dark spot on the camera. So the catalog does have lots of ideas. I know we get all excited and we grab the catalog and we're flipping through it just looking for stamp sets and stuff, but read the fall print. Go through a little bit slower and read that fine print and you will find a whole lot of ideas and tips and tricks and techniques. It's pretty awesome. So I'm just kind of looking for questions. Thank you to everyone who's entering hashtag Prize Patrol. That is how you get entered into the drawing to win today's card because in the background, I have the computer collecting everybody's name. And as long as you spelled it correctly and there's no typos, the computer is going to collect your name, put it into a wheel. And at the end of the broadcast, I'm going to spin that wheel and see who our winner is. But let's get started on our card. As I said, we're going to do some heat embossing. And so that's when the Embossing Essentials Toolkit comes in, because I'm going to start off with the Embossing Buddy. And this is an anti-static pad, and it's going to just rub off any oils or static that's on the paper before we go ahead and stamp using the Versamark ink, which is kind of a sticky ink. So it's going to stay wet a little longer so that we have time to add our powder. You can also use Versamark as kind of like a watermarking. If you were to ink up a stamp onto colored cardstock, and then heat emboss it without any embossing, just use the heat tool on it alone, then you will get kind of like a watermark effect of just a tone on tone that can be really pretty. If you're not very good at watercoloring, that's one of the reasons why you're going to want to use the heat embossing, because what it's going to do is the heat embossing stands up a little higher than the rest of the paper, so it creates a little bit of a wall that when you color, the water won't spread as far as it would, because the wall is going to keep it in the area where you want it. So I just went ahead and inked this up. And I inked it in Versamark. It's stained pink from something previous I did. But I set that down onto the counter, and I went this way with the pad and inked that up. And you can barely see it on here. It's a very fine, actually I can't see it at all. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time because I can't even see it. So I'm going to ink this up. Use the Embossing Buddy. There we go. Okay, then we're going to set that inside the little tray. And we're going to dump some powder on top of it. And so I'm just going very generously because I'm just going to be tapping off the excess into the tray there. And so you can see how the powder has stuck to the ink. But we have to be careful with it because if we were to bump into it, it's going to knock the powder off of there because it's stuck there, but it's not stuck there permanent until we heat set it. So I'm going to take our brush. This brush is good for knocking off any embossing powder that's on your card where you don't want it to be, but it also helps you direct everything into a corner of the tray so you can pour it back into your container. And I just use the corner of the tray. It's designed to go out this little screwed on end, but I don't know, I find it faster to just go this way. And it comes in very handy. I love this little set mostly for the little tools, the Embossing Buddy, the tweezers, all that. If you don't have the tray, you just take a piece of paper, fold it in the middle first, pour your powder over it, and then you can funnel it back into the little tub using that. But my absolute favorite out of this little set is these awesome reverse tweezers. So these tweezers have this kind of a plastic end to them, which is superior to the other tweezers I have. I have some other reverse tweezers that are done by another brand, but they're metal on the end. And when I would hold my cardstock with it, if I wasn't careful, the metal might rub off on the cardstock, but the plastic does not. Yes, the set is in the catalog. Of course, they moved everything, so I would have to look at it to see where. Heat embossing 1. Okay, so I'm looking in the back, and it says embossing heat and paste, page 126. I find I use the index a lot more with this catalog because they have kind of strewn the products in amongst all the other things. So here we go. Here is Get the Embossing Editions Toolkit right here. So it's at the bottom of page 126. And of course, this goes over everything you need to do heat embossing and then embossing paste as well. So again, that's one of those cool little things in the catalog where they're teaching you how to do something. The technique is in there, and then it points you to where all the tools are in order to do it. So I'm going to make a little bit of noise here as we heat up and melt our embossing powder. Okay, so you can tell where it has heat embossed or where it's melted it by kind of tilting it in the light, and it'll become shiny. It was not shiny until I hit it with the heat tool. And so that lets me know that it's been melted. And then also you might have noticed that I was heating from the top and the bottom, and that's on purpose because that's what actually warps your paper, is by having things uneven. So even before I go ahead and do some watercoloring, I might take a little bit of just water, not any paint or anything or ink, but just a little bit of water, and I'm going to put that on the back so that when I add water to the front, it's not going to make it curl as much. But now I have, you can see, if you look really close, you can see the roses and see how everything's kind of shiny. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint into there. Let's start with our Misty Moonlight. I'm going to use that for our roses. And I'm just tapping onto here. I'm using a little bit of water. And then making sure I know where the petals are. I'm just coloring into them. And like I said, I'm kind of butting up to the edge and then letting the water spread it around. And the edge, that heat embossed edge that's kind of raised a little, is keeping me inside the lines. And you also want to keep it pretty wet. You want it to flow around. The reason we're using the Fluid 100 paper is it is a watercolor paper, which means it's thicker and has the ability to soak up the water and let it blend together. So I'm done of just covering the whole thing, all with one color. And then if you wanted to, you could go back in and add a little bit more dark, go over it again where you feel the shadows would hit. So you could add a little more detailing by spending a little more time figuring out where your shadows would hit and then adding more color there. And I'm holding it with my hand at a little bit of an angle because I'm trying to get the light to grab a hold of that shininess on here so that I can see where my edges are. It might be good to start out with something different. I don't know that I would heat emboss these in black, but maybe find a design that you could heat emboss in black or gold or silver, and then come in and do this. Let's see. Because the black lines or the gold or silver lines would be a little more prominent and easier to see. And you can't really tell, but as I'm going along, I'm kind of gently squeezing the barrel of this thing, just letting a little bit more water out. And of course, the more time you spend with it and, are more careful with it, you will get a much better result. I tend to be going a little bit quickly because I'm on camera. I might go back after we're done and tab in a little, extra. But basically, I colored the 3 roses in the blue. And then I'm going to go back and color the little flowers. And so to change color with this thing, all you need to do is just squeeze out a little bit until it's clear, and then you're ready to move on and pick up the next color. I know it looks like it's blue, but it's not really. It's just the bristles are stained. But I'm going to come in with some yellow, and then I want just the center of those smaller flowers. So there's one. Kind of using this as a cheat sheet. There's another one over here. So that's going to be right here. A couple in the middle there. Then I'm going to use Petal Pink for the petals on those. I just used Daffodil Delight for the center. So I like that you can use the same paintbrush for all of them, and it has this really quick way to change colors. Does anybody have any questions about what we're doing so far? I know some of this gets a little boring when you're just watching me color. I'm also considering going back to doing some online classes. I know I was doing online retreats with Laura for a while, and she has since decided she doesn't like doing things online. She would rather do things in person. So I kind of lost my partner. So I'm going back to online classes. Is anybody interested in those? Would you be interested in maybe Christmas cards in July? Stampin' Up! Will be releasing online exclusives in July, and I can use those as some Christmas cards. See, I'm just looking at questions. Somebody said that they sometimes will put ink on a block. Yeah, that's another thing you can do. The other thing you can do is you can take a basic block and you can just dab it on there, and then you can pick up your ink from here. See that? I mean, there's lots of different ways you can do things. And the trick is you just find what works for you. I can't say there's any one way that's better or worse than another. You just find what you're comfortable with and what works for you, and then go with it. I have not had too much concern about putting water onto my ink pads because they are a water-based ink. And so I'm not really doing any damage to it. And I don't feel I'm dabbing it with enough, enough water is not coming off of my brush that it's making any difference. But you can see how this is nice and easy too to use the block. This reminds me of using the inside of the case because you've just kind of made a little puddle of ink and then you're just gradually picking little bits of it up. And I'm again turning the cardstock so that I can let the light shine on it to where I can see the lines. And then I'm just making sure to stay within the lines. Okay, so as I'm coming up to this one, I can see the bottom of this leaf and there's still an empty hole under here. So that lets me know that there's one more petal to that rose that I forgot. So we'll go back in and fix that. So see, that's one of the reasons I don't always use the block, is because now I've got all this excess ink I'm going to need to go wash off in the sink. Okay, and because my initial one had dried and then I'm adding more blue, I'm kind of dragging it out to make the color blend. Then I'm going to put a ribbon around just this layer. I'm going to do that by making a bow. Using the Basic Beige. Basic Beige is a new neutral color that Stampin' Up! Has come out with this year. And I don't want to say it replaces Very Vanilla or Crumb Cake or any of those, because it is quite different. And I have had a few people tell me that they think it stamps a little bit on the green side. And it does. When you first stamp with the ink of Basic Beige, I find it to be pretty green. And then as it dries, it gets a little more beige. So if you get it and it looks like it's green, give it a few minutes and see if it lightens up or calms down. If it doesn't and stays way too green, there might be something wrong with it, but most times I find that it calms down and is fine. It's not a true, vanilla or a crumb cake. It is different. So there may be a few little green undertones to it just naturally. Not green itself, but green undertones. Okay, then I'm going to bring in our card base once again, and we're going to put down the one layer. And I'm going to tilt it. So I'm kind of watching to make sure that I'm kind of almost to the edge, but not going over, because I don't want it to be larger than the base of the card. I want the thing to still fit in the envelope. And then sometimes with watercolor paper, I may add a little bit more adhesive, because the more adhesive there is, the flatter it might lay. And then I have a layer for the inside. And I'm going to use this smaller little grouping of flowers. I'm just going to in pink. And then I'm going to use the Happy Anniversary stamp. And this is a bundle. It does come with a set of dies, but it also comes with a set of masks. And in one of our previous lives, we actually used the masks to color the flowers. And you can stamp them and color them, or you can just color them by themselves, and they come out really pretty. So even though this is a bundle, I just didn't use all the pieces to it. Okay, looking for more questions. Christy says, sometimes I give her ideas. That's good. Mary says, online classes sound great. That's awesome, because I'm getting ready to release one. I'm hoping you guys like it. Okay, so now all we need is a few little embellishments, and I think we're about done with this card. Then we're ready to see who our winner is and take a peek at next week, or next week's. we're already Thursday. So yeah, I have a new card on Monday. I've already scheduled the live on YouTube. So if you want to head out there and click the little remind me button, that's out there. And there we go. There is our card. So what do you think? Who's going to give this one a try? Or at least going to try some watercoloring? Explain online classes. Okay, online classes is where I would design a class and then I would put together a bunch of product and then cut out all the pieces for your cards and get everything ready and then send it to you. And then there would be a video for each card and a PDF tutorial for each card, and then all of your pieces to put together. So it's basically like being in person in a class where I give you everything pre-cut and ready to go with all the directions, only you do it from the comfort of your own home instead of coming here. And then we can also, if you'd like, we can jump on a Zoom and then we can go over some things that way as well. But basically you buy product and then get the class with it. So just a better way to have access to a bunch of things. And like I said, it's probably for July, it's probably going to be 12 Christmas cards. I'll design 3 cards and you'll make 4 of each one, or 4 designs and 3 of each one, something like that, where you end up with 12. Okay, let's see who our winner is. So let me pull up our prize patrol wheel. Has everybody done that? Have you put in hashtag prize patrol, just like it shows on the screen, no spaces, spelled exactly like that because the computer is going to catch it in the background. And then I'm going to come in here and push draw, and it's going to do a spin and tell us who today's winner is. Okay, Ginger is our winner. Congratulations, Ginger. You know the drill. You're going to go over to my website, queenbeecreations.net, and then up there in the address bar, you're going to add /prize patrol, and that will take you to the Google form where you can fill in and claim your prize and tell me where to mail it. Monday, as I said, we're going to be doing a fun fold card. So this is a center accordion fold card. It's a great way to showcase some designer series paper. And that's what we're going to be doing on Monday. This one uses the Latte Love, which is an online exclusive item. So come back on Monday to see how that one's done. Yes, online card classes do cost. What I do is I just charge you basically for the materials and maybe $10 for the PDFs and videos and things, but it's a way that I drum up sales. And if you already have the stamp sets, then I sell you the designer series paper and some ribbon and embellishments, those sorts of things, so that you have everything you need to make the cards that we're making. But I will have more details for that next week because I'll pull all that together this weekend now that I know there's a little bit of interest. But it costs because I'm mailing you all the supplies and doing a lot of the cutting. So anyway, thank you for joining us, and I will see you back here on Monday for another fun fold card. Thanks a lot. Bye.